Hello, KubeCon. My name is Medya Ghazizadeh. I'm a tech lead at the Party Pirate team at Google, which is the nickname for the Google's container tools team. I also have with me Rohit Anand from NEC, who will be giving us a demo of how to contribute a new language to Minikube. It's a pity that I cannot do this talk in person and live to see your faces and reactions, but also to blame my imperfections and the mistakes in this talk on being live. So let's get started with recording this talk. So whenever I go to conferences and I talk about Minikube with tech in the tech events, the first thing they bring up is the Minikube emojis and how Minikube expresses itself in emojis. And who is behind these emojis? I would like to take one slide to acknowledge the hard work and the passion that I have witnessed from these names myself. People like Thomas Stromberg, myself, and Anders Björklund, Sharif Al-Gamal, Priya Wadawa, Josie Donizetti, previous maintainers of Minikube like Don Loren, Matt Ricard, Aaron Prindle, and the newer contributors to Minikube such as Go Vargo, Ruben Baez, and more than 500 Minikube contributors. Thank you very much. Minikube's primary goal, before we start, is, let me clarify that, it's local Kubernetes, like bring up a Kubernetes cluster on your local machine. It's not meant for a production remote cluster. It's a CNCF project, it's a cluster lifecycle project. And 5 things that I would like to just quickly mention. What Minikube provides a very fast way to build images with Docker and 5 other ways, and also access your app, mount your files into the cluster, feature gates, and more than 25 add-ons. But what's new Minikube? You gotta listen to this joke to like get the rhyme of this title. By the way, one secret that I'm gonna share with you, that we Minikube maintainers, we never type Minikube with capital M. That's something that you should never see. Minikube's Minikube. It's not Minikube. So capital M, no. What's new Minikube? Minikube is 86% faster since last year. It uses 20% less CPU. It has 2 new drivers. We have multi-node. We have a new command called pause and a pause, very exciting. And we auto-select flags for you. And we have 5 tools that graduated out of Minikube. I'm gonna give you a deeper look at all of these things that I just announced. Before that, let's take a mental picture of this slide and not forget it. Let's take a mental picture. Minikube supports all of these users. All of those green ones are the ones that we have integration tests for it. And we cannot break it. On every PR in Minikube, you have to support them. You have to support a guy with Linux and AMD 64, KVM driver, and any of those container runtimes and any of those CNIs. And any of those combinations that is possible, we support it. For example, you can have Linux and Docker and ARM processor and Cryo and WeaveNet CNI. And this is very important. Minikube has more than 3.3 million downloads on GitHub. We have tens of thousands of users, and they're very diverse in technology. That's what makes Minikube very unique. We support so many container runtimes, CNIs, and drivers. And we are not just one technology. We are very diverse. Here's an example. Somebody with macOS would have AMD 64, and they are using our VM driver as opposed to container driver, which is Hypercreate and Containerd and Bridge. Meanwhile, they could have chosen Mac, AMD 64, Docker driver, Cryo, or any of them. So the combinations are a lot. This is a slide I stole from the previous KubeCon we did. And it shows you like where the driver is, and then the container driver is, and the very top of the rocket is your app. I'm gonna skip quickly because it's gonna be a very compressed talk. And I apologize for speaking very fast because there's too much to cover. This is a graph that shows how much Minikube is faster. Minikube is 86% faster since last year. It used to take 2 minutes and 35 seconds just for a start. And now the same driver takes 35 seconds. And if you have Docker driver and Linux, it takes 21 seconds. How did we get here? There's another way, by the way, to look at how faster Minikube has become. This one is compared to other tools. This is how fast Minikube is available for deployment of an app. So compared to in these three, K3D, Minikube, and Kind, K3D is the fastest. It means the blue shows you when K3D is telling you it's ready for receiving apps. The red shows you when the API server is actually ready to take requests. And the green shows you when you can actually deploy your app to the cluster. So in K3D, you can see roughly it's around 25. For Minikube, it's roughly around 45. And for Kind, it's roughly around 65. And K3D, by the way, does not use Kubernetes source code completely. They fork some part of it. They replace the etcd. That's why they are faster. So Minikube seems like in this script that was run 113 times. You can check the time to Kate's on GitHub and Thomas repo to reproduce this result. How did we get from 2 minutes and 35 seconds to 21 seconds? Step one was collecting metrics. We wanted to know where we can invest to make PR. There are so many ideas we had how to make Minikube faster, so many. And we said, how about you write a PR bot, GitHub bot that will comment and says this PR makes Minikube this much faster or slower. And Priya did this, and it helped us massively to avoid accepting PRs that was adding tons of complexity to Minikube and was not doing actually any significant, meaningful difference. Another tool was Slowjam, which Thomas wrote, which is a UI visualizing the stack traces that shows us exactly which function was the one that we should attack to break it down to make it faster or make it run in parallel. So the big targets was creating the VM and also loading images into the container runtime. These are the two big ones. The first one, when I first joined Minikube, a team, this was my second serious task that I picked up. And I saw this was a long issue. This is an issue from 2016 that people asked us to please add Docker support, Docker driver. And we had not done this feature. And when I joined, I was like, why nobody did this? Why nobody added a Docker driver for Minikube? What would happen if we just create a container just the same way as we create a VM and then bootstrap the Kubernetes inside of it and just do exactly what we do for VMs? Why we are not doing that? And the answer was, when you do that, it crashes. And there was a project called Kind, and I looked at it. It's like, what Kind is doing that we are not doing? Why they are not crashing and we are crashing when we do that? And the answer was in this Red Hat blog. It's just like the real problem was systemd cannot run in a container if you don't do some tricks. So our problem become much smaller now. Now our problem was like how to make systemd work inside container inside a container. And once we solved this problem by basically using the same entry point as Kind, the entry point that fixes this problem for the image, we basically added Docker driver by basically creating the container the same way we create the VM and do the same thing we do for the VM. But there was still other things that we had to take care of, like refactoring a lot of the Minikube code to be more abstract and more reusable. And The answer was like, could we have all the features of Minikube? The question was like, yes. Some of the features took longer. And when we added the Docker driver, we have so many drivers, and we don't want to make Docker a special case. And say, why not add Podman driver? And we added Podman driver, and we were the first project to experiment with delivering an experimental Podman driver. So the challenges were actually two features of Minikube on Mac and Windows only, not on Linux. Because in Docker for desktop on Mac and Windows, you don't get an IP which is accessible. And we're lucky that we have a contributor who is a networking ninja, Joseph Donizetti. He found a solution how to make Minikube's tunnel and service work for Docker on Mac and Windows that involves using SSH tunneling, SSH port forwarding. So Kick made Minikube 1 minute faster. By the way, Kick is the short name for Kubernetes in container. In Minikube's code base, if you want to contribute to the Docker driver or Podman driver, you want to look at the Kick driver, which is Kubernetes in container. That's what we call it internally in Minikube code base. So Kick made a Minikube 1 minute faster, but still it was a long way to become under 35 seconds. The next target was preloading the images. So can we preload images for VMs as well? For example, a project like mine, they would build an image that has all the things they want to preload it per Kubernetes version. So if you want a different Kubernetes version, you want a different build a different image, and that has all the things in there. That would not be applicable for Minikube for both VM and Docker driver. We just follow a different workflow. How could we have preload for Minikube? That doesn't make Docker driver a special case, because we want to still remember that mental picture from the slides. All Linux, Mac, Windows, all those drivers, we want to keep supporting all of those cases and not make the Docker driver a snowflake or a special case. So how do we do that? We came up with a solution that we have the base image or the ISO for the VM base image for the container, and they don't have the Kubernetes image inside of them. We pull that from internet, from a tar file that has a frozen file system of a loaded overlay file system, and we just untar it into the VM. That makes a little bit of a problem that takes time to untar something and also download something. The download takes only the one time. This next time you will not download it again. But the untarring could be adding overhead. So we came up with a solution that we spin up a side container in parallel. We do the untarring there, make a volume out of it, and then attach it to the container while the other container is spinning up. So we save time by parallelization here. And that's how we actually got to the most of the 86% goal of Minikube. There's actually tons of other small optimization. Each one would cut 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds from Minikube. But these two were the top biggest one. And Priya implemented the preload as well. By the way, speaking of Priya, we have a talk, her talk. I encourage you to take a look at it, the recorded version of it, improving the performance of Kubernetes cluster. I screenshotted from her talk. This is how Minikube CPU overhead is over time, which is incredibly amazing to see Minikube be the tool that uses the least amount of CPU, even less than K3D. If you see this graph, this shows Minikube, K3D, Docker desktop, and kind. And see, kind has the highest CPU over usage, and Docker idle means nothing really. It means like only Docker and nothing on it. That's how much an empty and nothing on it Docker would would use from the CPU, 0.47, and a minikube on HyperKit uses 3.89, and Kind uses 5.5. By the way, the scripts to generate this are all available. The links will be at the end of the slide. This is also another visualization of the same data, showing minikube having the lowest amount of CPU after all of the optimization that Priya did. You have to watch that talk to see what she did for that. Another exciting feature, sorry about that, is minikube pause. So we did a lot of analyzation using Slowjam, using perf tools that we developed, and we found out the Kubernetes API server is actually the one which is the source of the problem. Like if the Kubernetes API server was not there, minikube was like almost nothing in terms of CPU overhead. If you look at that, so what if we pause the API server? And we did that. And then the cool thing about it, your apps are still running when the API server is paused. And you only need API server when you want to deploy more apps to it. So you can unpause it, deploy more apps, and then pause it. So you came up with a new concept in Kubernetes, a local Kubernetes called pause. And you can see in this graph that a paused minikube is almost as like an idle Docker in terms of CPU usage. Another exciting thing was Sharif Al-Gamal. He implemented the most reacted feature in the history of minikube, also a 2016 issue. This was actually a sooner issue than the VM free issue. It's issue number 94. It's incredible looking at this because now we have tens of thousands of issues. I mean, in number. So we have multi-nodes, thanks to Sharif Al-Gamal for implementing this. Another exciting thing here is we have auto-select options. Minikube has so much options. If you do minikube start -- help, you see so much. And we used to make people pass the VM driver to them, to the start. Now you no longer have to pass anything. We check your system, find the best driver based on your system, what is healthy, what is the best health score for each driver, and we pick the best driver for you. And also based on your system, we pick the best CNI, the best memory. Everything is auto-selected for you in a smart way, based on your needs, not a generic default value. And this is another exciting part of minikube. Another new thing in minikube, we have a add-on that helps you develop apps on minikube easier when you want your apps wants to do credential calls to GCP. So you no longer have to mount your secret to every pod. If you enable this add-on, it will do it for you automatically. Check it out. So demo time. I would like Rohit to tell us how to add a new language to minikube. Let's take a listen.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rohit, and I'm Senior Member Technical Staff at NEC. So my talk is mainly focused for the new contributors who want to get started with the Kubernetes, and I bet minikube is the first repo you would love to contribute to. Let's get started. So before we start off any code or review contribution, we have to go to multiple account setup and sign the CLA. Firstly, we need to create the GitHub account using company email address, or you can also link your existing GitHub account using your company email address or individual email addresses. But make sure it is primary and visible to all. Now you need to create Linux Foundation identity. For that, you need to log in using your GitHub account. Once you logged in into your GitHub account, your GitHub username will be automatically pre-populated. You need to fill out your first name, last name, and submit the form. It will create your identity on the Linux Foundation identity portal. If you are signing the CLA using your organization name, then managers of the organization name, email addresses, and all the individual contributors' name and email addresses are required to sign the CLA. Once this form is submitted, a CLA will be sent to the individual email and it must be signed electronically. Now you need to authorize the CNC of contribution. So please authorize this link using sign up to contribute this project as an employee. So once you click on that link, your Linux Foundation profile should look something like this. If you want to know more detail about CNCF CLA, please check out these links. Now I'm going to demo how to create a pull request in Minikube. But before creating a pull request, you need something to work on. For that, you need to visit the Minikube repo on the GitHub. So as you can see, there are a bunch of issues here. So for the first time contributors, I recommend try picking up issues good first. So there are several good first issues over here. You can pick any one of them. After that, you need to fork this repository to your local repo. Once it is forked to your local repo, you need to clone it on your local machine. So I already cloned it my local machine. So my good first issue is how to add new language in the Minikube. So all the new translations are being stored in the top level translation directory. So if you want to add new language to the Minikube, you need to add new JSON file in the translation directory with the local code of language you want to add translation for. So I am using here J for Japanese. Now you need to run make extract command from the root to populate that file with the string to be translated in JSON form. Once it is done, you need to add translated string into the JSON file as the value of the map, where English phrase is the key. Once you have added all your translations, you need to rebuild the Minikube from scratch. And for rebuilding, use make command. Once make command is completed, it will create a fresh Minikube binary in the Auth directory. So if you have same system locale, then Minikube start from the Auth directory gonna work as a test. If you have different system locale, you can override the printed version using lc all environment variable. So I'm using here Japanese. Minikube start. So I'm starting Minikube with Docker driver. So as you can see, you added translation for Japanese and Minikube is starting in Japanese. So it's verifying the Kubernetes component now. Wow, kubectl is configured to use Minikube. So as you can see, uh, Minikube is successfully started. Now you need to git add your changes, add translations. Now git commit your changes. So write down your good commit messages over here. So I added translation for Japanese. Now just save this file. Now you can push your changes to your local repo. In my case, my local branch is @trans. Now it will push all my changes to my local branch. Just copy paste this link. and open in your browser. So it's loading. So you can write the description of your PR over here. So add the translation. So you can create the pull request using create pull request button. So your pull request will be successfully created. For the review process, we use the Kubernetes GitHub review. So make your PR smaller so that it is easier to review. So I have written commit messages in my PR. So you can write good commit messages from here using these links. So if the Minikube reviewer adds the LGTM or approve level, then pull request into the final merge queue. So you can also contribute to our documentation. So every contribution is valuable. So you can contribute to our documentation. You can either fix broken link or anything is much valuable. You can report the issue to the Minikube repository, as you can see. So we have Minikube trials take place every Wednesday from 11 a.m. PST. So you can check out these links. So here is the process to report the bug. To report an issue in Minikube, visit this repo and click on new issues. So write detail about your issue and answer all required information. So things to take care while reporting bug. You should not open issue for question. So while you are learning or playing with Kubernetes, you may run into questions, ask question on Stack Overflow or Server for it. But do not raise issues for question. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Rohit, for that. I would like to add that you could ask your question at any time. The best place for that would be the Slack. Let's continue with the rest of the presentation. So how, if you remember the mental picture, I guess, asked you guys to take, which was this one. Remember this one? We support all of this combination of things. We support any possible combination of these. How do we not break them? And the thing is, we do break them. But each time we break them, we add an integration test for it. So it's the last time we ever broke it. So I mean, we are not expert on all of those technologies, VirtualBox, Hyper-V, KVM, all of them. So each time we find a workaround for any of them, we either automatically do it for the user or add it to a solution message. But the key is integration test. Without integration test, we would have not been able to remotely do any of the things we did in a Minikube. So if you see in each Minikube PR, we have 21 integration tests of different kinds. For example, Docker on Windows, Docker on macOS, Hyper-V on Windows, HyperKit on macOS. And each of those integration tests is about 200 tests. Some of them take an hour, or sorry, 40 minutes. So we invested in testing, and it's one tool that came out of Minikube that I built over a hackathon. And when we were looking at integration test results, this is how it looks like from 200 integration tests. Let's say something failed, you want to find that. It was difficult, and so what if we could convert that to HTML? So this is the HTML version of the same the same test that you saw. You can see it's foldable. You can see all the past ones, and you can sort them by the duration. So, and you can see this is, and then you can search with it and then open it in a new window, copy the logs to the folder, permanent link. So this is done by GoPoke. And GoPoke, I initially named it GoPretty, and then it just auto-completed myself, GoPretty or Go Home. It was a hackathon idea, so I just came up with a quick name and it just became GoPoke. And we use GoPoke in our integration test to convert a text Golang test output text to a HTML one, which makes our life so much easier to read the tests, because we have so many tests on all those platforms, hundreds of them, and makes it much easier for us. Other than unit tests and integration tests, we also have the Kubernetes conformance tests. We also have ISO and base image tests. ISO for the VM and base image for the kick drivers, Docker and Podman. And we also recently added a stress test. So we had a bug in Minikube that we noticed if you have many Docker drivers at the same time, we had a specific issue. And we said, how about you make that issue never happen again? We write a test for it and forget about it. So each time we make a PR, the testing infrastructure helps us to catch them. And we developed, like, I would say, an empire of testing, really. We have so many VMs in Google Cloud, and we reached out to SIG Windows, and thank you so much for SIG Windows to hooking up us with Windows VMs in Azure. So now we test Windows. We used to not have test Windows, and now we do tests in parallel. 1 year ago, we were not doing tests in parallel. Now the test, as opposed to 1 hour and a half, it takes 30 minutes or 40 minutes, but we do way more testing. Because we do the test in parallel. We have actually taken a very good advantage of GitHub Actions. And speaking of GitHub Actions, I have a very happy announcement to make that we published setup-minikube GitHub action. So now in your work development, you can actually have Minikube run in GitHub Actions by adding 3 lines. Just say uses medyagh/setup-minikube, and then you can test your apps against running Minikube in every GitHub Action job. So for full example, click on that. But before I get distracted about this slide, we also have customers from IDE teams that use Minikube underneath, as you would not notice that they are using Minikube underneath that. And we are grateful for them because they give us a lot of good feedback. This is an example of a flag that Minikube supports. Wait --all. It means wait for everything possible after you start the Minikube cluster, and verify everything. That way you don't have to add those time slips in your scripts, in the CI scripts. And delete on failure means if for some reason the cluster failed, it's okay, delete it and recreate it. And this way you give us permission to delete your cluster if it was a failure on it, and just recreate it, because most of the time that fixes it. And interactive false, it means sometimes some drivers need prompt for passport or something like that. In CI, you say interactive false. This is, hey, this is gonna be no human to type anything. Don't prompt us for anything. This is an example of running Minikube in CI, by the way. That's how this setup-minikube GitHub action, when we implemented it, we use those for you. Minikube speaks your language. You saw that Rohit showed us how to add Japanese language. This is Minikube speaking French, or issue templates. We have issue templates in multiple languages. We accept contribution from all languages. You can see sometimes we actually respond in the language using Google Translate. Sheriff was responding to a Chinese user in Chinese. And also we respect the users from all kinds of environments, corporate environments, countries with low access to internet, countries with restricted access to GCR. Anybody, we try to make sure everybody can access us. We have detections how to help them to run Minikube in corporate environments with proxy environments. And also we have a tool called Triage Party that also graduated from Minikube project. And I encourage you to come with us. We have a Triage Party every Wednesday. You can come play with us. I will let you read more about it because we're running out of time. This is a tool that we wrote to help us triage the Minikube issues. We have tens of thousands of users. If we didn't have a tool like Triage Party, we would be overwhelmed how to respond to all of those issues and in a timely manner. Here's the link to all of the tools that I mentioned in this slide, and also the link to the Slack. Take a look at them. By the way, we have surveys on every release notes. So if you click on it, we do listen to the surveys. This is a survey from 2020 Q1. The top 2 categories that people asked us to improve on was multi-node and VM-free. And then the next quarter, when we delivered those things and fixed all the bugs for it, we saw that there was none of them anymore. Like people, we listened to your surveys, we implemented, and you gave us the feedback that yes, you did a good job listening to us. So please fill out those surveys. We totally listen to them. We have more than 1,500 surveys. I think last time I looked at survey responses. What's coming next? GUI, auto pause. I talked about the pause command. Wouldn't it be cool that Minikube automatically pause it for you so you don't have to pause it for yourself? And running Minikube on Chromebook, I think that would be cool. For a full list, look at our public roadmap. We have a new website, simplified and searchable. Our previous website was a little bit not very good. It was terrible, actually. But this one, I think you would like this one better. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for listening to this talk. I know I talked very fast. It was a very compressed talk. I hope I didn't make you guys be sick of Minikube by my talking so fast and throwing so much information so quickly. And thank you very much for watching this. I would be available for any questions that you might have. Thank you very much.